I'll call to order this Board of Trustees special board meeting, workshop for Tuesday, June 8th at 5:30. Time is 5:30. So first thing is public comment, and we do not have any public comments this afternoon. And so item agenda number 2 is budget workshop. And Mr. Ross, the floor is yours.
Good evening, board. President. Golly, I just lost everything. Appreciate everything. This will be our last budget amendment. I'm going to be confused all day. Sorry about that. This is our last budget workshop. We're getting to be in the new room. And so that's throwing everybody off. So it's not going to stay up there. All right. We have a few things to go over before we will approve a budget on June 28th. And there still could be some changes with the legislative session. We'll go over a little bit of that as we go through the agenda tonight. But as we go through this, we'll go over the budget highlights, legislative update, ESSER, and ESSER 2 did come out, so we have some numbers on that. Our proposed budget, district highlights, and our proposed budget. We want to go ahead and show you our child nutrition budget and our debt service budget also tonight. If you go to the planning calendar, this is, you see we're at June 8th. We will do our public hearing and our budget, proposed budget on June 28th. We'll do the adoption of the final budget amendment on that same night, and then adoption of the budget. And then we will start in next year, July 1, when we get that all going. These are the budget highlights for this current year. We will do a final budget amendment, and this is roughly the same thing we saw on the May budget workshop, and then where we think we should end up, which is about right here. And so we, as we go through, we may change a little bit of the transfer out as we see what projects are not going to finish that are already starting. So those numbers could change just a little bit as we work through the last part of June and get ready. But this is where we think we will end up. Right?
Mr. Dodd,
Yes, sir.
maybe I'm jumping on the recapture on chapter 49 and the forecasted change. Is that a lack of cost of law students, or what is that 700?
The 143, is that what you're talking about?
No, it's talking about the word that says 707, 645.
That was just part of our template as we're moving through the template, and of course we're on the hold harmless, ADA hold harmless, but that was an increase for our revenue. So that was the reason for the increase in recapture, and I'll discuss a little bit more on recapture as we get into the ESSER talk here just a little bit. But that changes nearly every time we get a new template update. That recapture amount changes just a little bit here and there.
The last column will be budget amendment number 5. Is that what that last?
No,
number
this is what the projected end of year budget will look like, but we will probably pull this back up, and I'll talk a little bit about where this will be. But this is kind of where we think we'll be at the end. But we will actually probably pull that 12 million back up in here to kind of do some buffer, because of what ESSER 2 is going to may do to us. So I just want to know that at the end, this may be 0, but that number will be back up in here to give us some fluff. So as we work through what ESSER 2 may do, then that will help. And I'll go ahead. and talk a little bit about ESER 2. One of the things that they're going to do with ESER 2 is it's a lot like ESER 1. And so, you know how ESER 1 affected us when they calculated the ADA hold harmless last year. They reduced our ADA and increased our recapture. And then they took away from the foreign transition grant. They're going to charge us for the ADA hold harmless again for 2021. And it can be done in 3 different ways. But we're it's one more slide if you would go up. It's all right, you keep going. One more. Nope. The other way. Anyway, so that is one thing that we think that they will charge us for the ESER 2 is the calculation on how we're going to calculate the ADA hold harmless that we receive. Now, that's roughly about 1,030 something students different from what our regular ADA is right now and what our hold harmless is. So they will net that out through our FSP again. And so we may or may not really see anything from ESER 2. And it could change what our FSP will be.
So what you're saying, make sure I understand this right. ESER 2, the state legislature said, all right, look, here's the federal money we're going to give you, it's $15.4 million. But we're going to reduce your ADA on the state level so that we're not going to give you all the state hold harmless money from the grant. And so net, may not do you any good, but we just kept your federal money.
Essentially, we don't know for sure how they're going to calculate this, but that's the reason we're pretty much going to take that what is left over at the end of the budget when we make our final budget amendment, move it up into the recapture area. We may put a little bit here and there if we have some holes in our expenditures, because last year they didn't give us the information until after we closed June 30th. And then they came out with information on how they were going to figure the hold harmless from last year and supplant ESER 1. And so it increased by about $2.4 million. Could roughly, be around $11 million in that 88 hold harmless. So we don't know exactly everything yet because they have not put out any more information than this right now.
So this basically equates to the fact, like, the lottery system, right? It's supposedly all the money from the lottery system goes to education.
About 60%.
Yeah, and then they take, and if it makes a lot of money, then they just reduce the amount of money technically they're going to give you.
Not quite.
So you don't end up with any extra money. You just but since this is coming from the federal government.
Now, they have more options under ESER 2 than they did ESER 3. That's why they went ahead and released ESER 3, because they had 60 days in order to release it to the districts. That's why, and there was a lot more. It had to go to the LEA, it had to go to the districts. It couldn't stay at the state level. ESER 2 has a few more rules that allows them to do different things with ESER 2. And so we are just estimating right now. We don't know for sure how it will affect us. But I was just trying to, this net calculation process that they're going to do, we figure will be a lot like ESER 1 and how they used ESER 1 and then lowered our ADA in order to change those figures.
So, Brian, I was just asking, are there other states who are handling it this way, or is Texas the only one that's essentially penalizing?
Since Texas is the only one that bothers me,
Yeah, you don't know, yeah.
I don't know.
Other states are doing it in different ways. Texas isn't the only one that's looking at supplanting, but
Okay.
but not every state is.
Okay.
So, it is something that we, will hopefully have a little more information by the time we get to, the regular June board meeting, and we'll move on, we'll just see what's going to happen.
Is it too simple a summary to say that from the federal government's point of view, they provided this funding to address problems caused by the pandemic, and one of the dollars to be used for that? Texas, on the other hand, the state of Texas is saying, well, we passed hold harmless provisions, but now that you've got the federal money, that's what's going to hold you harmless.
They did apply for waivers. I haven't heard if they've been approved yet or not. They did go ahead and let us know pretty much what our amount would be, but how we get it or how much we get will depend on this calculation here. And, if they take it from the FSP, then essentially, and do what they did with ESSER 1, is they put it into the formula the formula grants that we get, just our regular funding from the state, and then created a federal grant for the same amount. So they reduced what our local grant was, what our local funding was, and then moved it over to a federal grant. That we could move over expenses that we would have normally had in our regular general fund, and then move over to the federal grant.
Have they indicated when you'll know the net number, the net impact of ESSER 2?
No, they have not. I was really surprised that I think they wanted to get it out before the legislative session was over, but I have not seen the numbers on how the calculations will be yet. They said I was going to be in a happy mood, and we already got started on the wrong foot. But anyway.
You did rail the point this year.
But hopefully we will have a little bit left over that we can do what we're supposed to do. I think they saw that ESSER 3 went straight to the districts, and we did get a little over 34 million in ESSER 3. So that's something that they feel like now they can use ESSER 2. The ESSERs all work the same, except there's a lot more with the ESSER 3 that the state cannot do this year. Now, the districts can handle the ESSERs the same way. And actually go back to March 2020 if we wanted to, but we don't want to do that because that was in last fiscal. We don't want to open that. I mean, we want to use the money we get to benefit our students moving forward. So that's something that as we work through the plan and on ESSER 3, then that will benefit our students in our district. You want to go back, unless y'all have some more questions, we'll go back over this a little bit. The legislative update, the cleanup bill for House Bill 3 was House Bill 1525. And I probably sent more emails and made more phone calls and talked to other CFOs and school districts on this first bullet. And that is, they put a 400 million cap per year on formula transition grant, which could affect roughly about 330 school districts. The thing about formula transition grant, you can be in it 1 year, you can be out of it 1 year, you can be back in it, just depending on what your district looks like. And so it's not like ASSETAR where once you were in, once you fell out, you were out. So it reacts differently. It depends from year to year what your district looks like. So what this could mean for Midland ISD is in 1920, if the $400 million cap would have been on formula transition grant, they would have reduced our formula transition grant by about $5 million. In 2021, if the $400 million cap would have been, they would have reduced our funding by $14 million. They would have prorated our funding, be capped at $400 million, which would mean that they would have prorated all the rest of the school districts the same way that was in formula transition grant. And so that's why we fought as hard as we could. I know Dr. Ramsey and Mr. Murray wrote letters and explaining what it was going to do to our district, or what it can do to our district. And I'll just leave it at that. I won't go any further. But, you know, if you look at what the 330 school districts, how that, if they could have been in or they could have been out, depending on how they start and how they finish, then, I mean, roughly that could affect anywhere from 1.7 million students to 2.1 million students across the state of Texas on their funding. So that's, I thought that would drive a point home that they wanted this cap. They say we won't ever, we should not hit this cap. The history already shows us the first 2 years, the first biennium of formula transition grants, it would have hit the cap. One of the things that they are saying that will help is they reestablish, or this grant is still going on, the fast growth allotment. They say that will take out some of the formula transition grant money, so they won't ever get to the cap. We had fast growth allotment in 1920. We did not have it for 2021. But since we got it in 1920, then we'll receive a portion of what that amount will be. Now I say receive. All it does is take from the formula transition grant allotment and move it up here to the fast growth allotment, and it just subtracts it out of the formula transition grant money that we get and just moves it to another line item. And so we don't receive any additional funding. If this continues and we start building students again, then once we go out of formula transition grant, then we will start actually receiving that allotment. But since we receive formula transition grant, they just subtract here, put it up here, bottom line stays the same. Welcome to Texas Finance, School Finance 101. It is something that we will work through. Like I said, I'm hoping that we don't hit that cap, because we won't know till after the school year is over if the cap is actually going to be put in place. Because you have estimates at the first of the year, but until final settle up, you won't know what's going to happen until August. We're already 2 months into another year before we know what's going to happen. So that's the one thing about the cap that really puts formula transition grant schools in kind of in a not a bind, but you just don't know what it's going to look like from year to year. They did restore the gifted and talented weight, which they had taken it out. We still have to track expenditures for gifted and talented, but now they've actually restored that weight. But for us, it moves it from formula transition grant up to gifted and talented, and it just tells us how we have to spend that money once it's in a state allotment. And then one of the things that, there was two things that were said. They would keep all of House Bill 3 funding whole, and that the tax rate was not going to change. Well, the tax rate floor is now changed, and so it's going. Our floor was 91.64 under the current year, and the max, excuse me. So the max is at 91.34. That has to do with the property values for the state. If they grow so much, which they were predicting they were not gonna grow, but each time that the comptroller came back in and did a new budget estimate, he changed what the values were for the state. And so that was why, under House Bill 3, it has compression of tax rate. So that will be what our tier 1 tax rate is now. We can still add the 4 pennies like we have in all the other years that we've done this, so. Any questions? All right. So this is, well, I want to go ahead and we've gone through some of this before. I just wanted to show you what the ESSER 1 effect, the 3.4 million was really what we received under ESSER 1. But by the time you move expenditures and all that kind of stuff, really the net that we actually received was 270,000. ESSER 2, the preliminary amount is 15.4 million, which we've already talked about. We may not see very much of that. And then ESSER 3 is 34.6 million. We did the, yes.
So what you're saying is that the 34 million that we received in ESSER 3 is actually
That's
increased received funds, correct?
We have to do a grant, we have to.
Do the
a grant
application, yeah,
application. We have to do a grant application for ESSER 2 also.
as well.
And that due date for ESSER 2 is September 2nd. But the ESSER 3 is July 21st is the.
So why would we apply for the funds of ESSER 2 if it's really not going to benefit? I mean, like, I guess it seems like more work for the district if in reality, we're not gonna receive any more money.
Well, I think we will.
You do?
I just don't know what the total calculation will
Okay.
be.
So you think it's
there
worth
was
doing the
also all
application?
kinds of estimates at
Okay.
first. The max, I think, but I mean, even if it's $3 or $4 million, that's $3 or $4
Yeah,
million
that's
that we did not have and we do benefit our students.
Okay, so you're saying there is possibility that we end up with more, but we're not talking about 15 million more, which is what it looks like on paper when we first glance. Okay,
Yes, yes.
I see.
We did the bulk purchase program, which is
That's okay.
iPads and stuff. That was a grant we applied through the CRF. And then we received a local match from the city of $503,000. Then we did the power purchase reimbursement, and we've been looking for this. This just paid in May or June? May. So we have received this grant that we applied for, which paid for a lot of our Chromebooks. And then we did a TDM reimbursement, which was the hotspots. We did some hotspots and different things, and that was the reimbursement for TDM. So all in all, it's around 54.3 million.
It's additional,
Yes,
okay,
hopefully.
hopefully additional,
Yes. Now, the 34 million is
but 15
Will be
million
nice,
is
yeah.
included in that one, but it's not really 15 million.
correct.
So this bottom number is gonna be lower.
And this was a slide we had done before, but this was the first ESSER 1, ESSER 3, 34.6 million, and then the ESSER 2 that you go to next.
But real quick, I'm sorry. You know, on the laptops and all that,
Chromebooks.
Chromebooks. So, I mean, is there what financial impact is there to maintain all that infrastructure in the district? Where are we adding a person? Did it add a person or technology-wise and maintenance-wise?
There was some new positions in technology and in instructional technology. So I'm not sure if those positions have been filled yet, but and really I don't know if that had to do with, you know, we were looking at a one-to-one going through, and so those positions were out there. Don't know where they are in those positions as far as hiring.
We can get the board an update, it's a good question, that we'll put it in Friday.
But, one of the things that we, anytime you buy technology, there's always a refresh year. And so, we will be looking at that and where to budget that in. You have a
When it
question?
comes to saying the iPad or the Chromebook technology, also we're saving some money on textbooks on the other side, right? Because we're able to download information rather than buy textbooks. So,
Right.
there's a little bit of
There is, there is. And I already talked about this. So our proposed budget, we'll talk about, happy things now. So, no, the proposed budget, this is our current year budget, and this is our proposed budget. With our values dropping, that's gonna lower our, amount of tax revenue coming in, and the tax rate compression will lower the amount of our tax money coming in. That's why you see the difference from this year to this year on our tax revenue. And we went through here, the other revenue, which total decrease from this current year is 53.3 million. Now, we began the year at 392 million. And so things have changed through the year. You're seeing the in-year value, or in-year what we are ending for this current year. Last year, we approved a budget, I believe, is at 392 million. I didn't go back and look, but I think that was the number that we approved. So it's, all in all, it's not a big drop from where we actually started last year. It's just we had some value, supplemental value increases over the year. And then once hold harmless, the ADA hold harmless came in, then that increased what we had budgeted for student numbers. So those were kind of the two drivers to bring this revenue up to 434 from the original budget of 392. And then these are the expenses of, the different expenditures. We have the campus budgets, the department budgets, utilities, recapture, because we are lowering how much our tax collection will be. We also, recapture will follow. And it's, about a difference of $3 million. And then our salaries and benefits for total planned expenditures of 375.9 million with an estimate of 4.9 that will change all the way through the year. So, but when we go through the budget, we will approve a balanced budget when we approve on June 28th. That's right, our numbers are right now. Go through this budget. These are some of the things that are included in the budget. The salary scale increased to 57.5 for starting teacher pay. That increased to $13 and 2% for the rest at 1.3 million. 2% pay for other staff, and then interactive boards at 1.7 million.
What is interactive? For all the rooms?
Yeah, we have been putting, I just lost some words. Smart, well, they're smart board, but there's another name. Is it on here? Clever touches. Clever touches, all right. Yeah, we've been putting clever touches in classrooms anyway, and this is to continue that process.
So we don't have any overhead.
No, I won't go that far, but I haven't been in every
Probably are
classroom, and I'm
some,
sure there's a
probably
few stuck somewhere.
Yeah, my list.
But we're trying to get rid of, I'm hoping at least a projector is in the room
That'd be
instead of a whole overhead.
Right.
I mean, yeah. So anyway, but I won't guarantee.
I was just kidding.
And this is our child nutrition budget, and this is what we'll be presenting. Part of it, we had, went ahead last year and transferred $1 million to child nutrition. And then, we put their fund balance a little higher than where it needs to be. So that's one of the things that we're working on. We're gonna have some capital outlay in some of our kitchens and things like that. And so that's kind of why it's at a negative right now. We'll go into the fund balance a little bit for child nutrition.
So I guess my question is, last year we let them, we moved that money, and so they're still gonna be in a deficit of needing more money, even though the $1 million that they took out of the fund balance last year?
Yes, as this budget looks right now.
They're just gonna use part of that.
They're just gonna use some of that
Okay.
fund balance as, and a lot of it's gonna be some capital outlay.
So I guess my question is, so the $1 million that we took out is just gonna reflect that it came out of the fund balance?
Yes. Because you can't move it back.
Right.
Once general fund puts money in child nutrition, they have to be able to use that unless there's a formal loan agreement before we can have that. So, so this is one of the things that we need to do is go ahead and go with that fund balance. And then this is our debt service. And so this is our current budget. Of course, some of this has to do with the refunding. So that's why this figure is so much larger than when it first started. Because when you have to book a lot of different things, and really these are mainly book entries. But in order, when we did the refunding, that was some of the book entries that we did. We're still looking at the 7.02 tax rate. We will run through the tax table. MCAT just sent us that spreadsheet this week. And so we will run through that, make sure that's what it says we can levy. Of course, we won't set a tax rate until we receive our values, certified values. We got an estimate on values, and I stay up with MCAT and make sure as changes are happening, as they start getting protesting and different things like that, we will update those values. That may change a little bit for 199 and for this budget, 199 general fund and debt service, depending on what they do with the protest and what they think the protest and how many has been finished by the time we set our budget on June 28th. So there's still a lot of moving parts. There's still going to be some moving parts after the legislative session. There always is. They come up with different, how they're going to structure what was passed. And then we will be getting information, all the way until we approve that budget.
Is there any rescheduled bond payments in this next year's budget, 2021, 2022, or early payments?
Yes,
Yes,
there is.
it's,
Around,
to
what?
pay off the Series 2013, it had a little over $1 million. And then our Series 2012 is also callable, and there's 15 million there, but we're looking at maybe calling 6 million.
which will reduce the tax burden for taxpayers and reduce debt. This year with that refunding and our payments, we were supposed to reduce debt by about $17 million, I believe. We actually reduced total debt by a little over $32 million with the refunding and our debt service payment. So that's a big win for Midland ISD and Midland ISD taxpayers. So we're reducing debt as it's coming callable also, instead of refinancing. So hopefully we can take care of as much as we can and not have to refinance it. I believe that's it. Do y'all have any more questions?
I appreciate the work Mr. Dowd and Junior team, and Dr. Ramsey have put in. Bringing us before. I know it's a lot of late evenings and nights and minds put together on what's going to be beneficial for the district for our students. So I appreciate y'all's time in that.
Thanks. That's two of the big part of the team right there, and they do a lion's share of the work and really do a great job for this district. So, any other questions? We'll have a budget ready for you June 28th. Remember, budget is good that day. It can always change later, so thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dodds. The time is now 6:07, and we will move into closed session in accordance with Government Code Section 551071 for the purpose of private consultation with the board's attorney regarding pending or contemplated litigation and any or all subject matters authorized by law, and 551.074 to deliberate the appointment, employment evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee. And we'll have business after this, so we'll come back and we'll have an action item once we return from executive session. Thank you. The time is now 7:48, and we are emerging from closed session. The first item the next item on the agenda is item number 4, discussion possible action item A, Midland ISD 2021-2022 compensation plan. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
I have a motion to approve, a motion by Mr. Bishop, a second by Mr. Marquez. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. We have 6-0, we have unanimous 6-0 vote. Thank you. The time is now 7:49, and we will adjourn. Thank you.